1:47 local time, Al-Asad Air Base, Iraq. Chief Warrant Officer Mason Red is staring at a green-lit flight board beside an MH-47G Chinook. Rotors still, desert air cold, generators humming in the dark. In 23 minutes, everything he knows about routine movement across the Iraqi night will be shattered. 48 Rangers are loading black packs in silence. Across the border, in western Iran, a hardened command post is about to direct a wave of regional escalation. This is how a decapitation raid begins. The western Iraqi desert looks dead at this hour. Flat black ground, distant heat shimmer from parked aircraft, the smell of JP-8, and dust hanging low over concrete. But this place matters. Al-Assad sits in Anbar province, one of the most strategically important air hubs in the region. Positioned close enough to project force west into Syria, east toward the Iranian frontier, and south into the Gulf. Tonight, it is not a base, it is a springboard. Imagine you're here. You're standing on the flight line with the wind from turning blades hitting your chest. To your left, two MH-47Gs from the 161st Special Operations Aviation Regiment, the Night Stalkers, sit nose out, heavy assault birds built for exactly this kind of mission. Long-range tanks, terrain-following capability, crews that train to hit a target in darkness within seconds of the plan. To your right, Rangers from the 75th Ranger Regiment do final checks under red lamps. Suppressors, breaching kits, medical pouches, extra magazines, no wasted motion, no loud voices, just the kind of silence that tells you everyone already understands the stakes. And the stakes are enormous. The target in this fictional scenario is a hardened Iranian command node outside Kermanshah, west of Tehran and east of the Iraq border, tucked against the Zagros terrain where mountain shadow, layered security, and short warning times create the illusion of safety. The facility is not just another bunker. It is a regional coordination point. Signals traffic has tied it to drone launch scheduling, missile routing support, and proxy militia tasking across multiple theaters. If it stays online through dawn, Allied bases in Iraq and the Gulf could face synchronized attacks before the sun is up. That is the geopolitical context. Real region, real tensions, real military logic. Kermanshah matters because western Iran is not peripheral terrain. It is a gateway. Roads run through mountain corridors toward Iraq. And logistics networks can move fast there. Air defense coverage is denser than outsiders assume. And buried in that geography is the enemy's calculation. If you place a command element just far enough inland, under enough concrete, protected by enough local security, Washington hesitates. Regional commanders stall and the window passes. They believed distance would equal immunity. That belief is why the raid happens. Now shift perspective. Move from the American flight line to the Iranian planning room. 3 hours earlier, senior officers at this fictional command site think they are ahead of the cycle. They believe U.S. forces are posture-focused, defensive, reactive. They expect surveillance, warnings, maybe a standoff strike later. Not men on the ground, not Rangers. Not helicopters crossing Black Mountain valleys in the middle of the night. Their plan is straightforward. Keep the command staff concentrated for one final synchronization meeting. Push targeting updates to launch cells and partner networks. Confirm timing. Disperse before sunrise. They only need a short window, 90 minutes of uninterrupted command and control. Then the network fragments, mobile teams move, and retaliation becomes slower, messier, less precise. From their point of view, it's a smart gamble. Political pressure is rising. Regional confrontation needs a sharp demonstration, a show of reach, a reminder that escalation can travel in every direction. And they think the Americans won't risk a manned penetration into western Iran unless the threat is absolutely undeniable. But there's a problem with their plan. Actually, 3 problems. First, they centralized too much expertise in one place. Second, they transmitted too much data in one burst. Third, they assumed American information dominance stops at the border. It doesn't. While Iranian officers believed they were hidden by rock and distance, multiple collection layers were already stitching together their location. Signals intercepts picked up encrypted timing traffic. Overhead systems tracked unusual movement patterns near a supposedly quiet support zone. F-35s flying outside the threat envelope mapped emissions without ever announcing themselves. MQ-9 crews watched roads feeding the facility. Separate feeds, separate angles, one picture. That is the flaw in their thinking. Not technological inferiority alone, strategic miscalculation. They thought they were stalking. In reality, they were already being hunted. At 1:24 a.m., the mission crosses the line from contingency to execution. The order moves through a compartmented chain. confirm hostile coordination window, authorize direct action, launch assault force. There is no dramatic speech, no movie moment, just clipped confirmations. A target package pushed to tablets, final weather check, route validation, electronic support on standby. Time now matters down to the second. This is where modern warfare feels less like chaos and more like brutal synchronization. A high-altitude platform keeps watch over the region. An RC-135 rivet joint is listening. A Global Hawk has already helped fill in movement patterns. Two MQ-9 Reapers watch the nearest access roads for any quick reaction force. Farther away, F-35 has used passive sensors to build the electronic map. An MC-130J Commando 2 supports the long-range helicopter profile because the Night Stalkers do not gamble on fuel when the ingress route involves mountain masking and low-level flight. Information first, access second, violence only when required. That sequence is what professionals look like. At 1:31, the base siren doesn't sound. It doesn't need to. This is not a mass alert. This is a knife. Rangers rise, shoulder rucks, and move. The sound changes instantly. Rotors spinning up from a chop to a roar, sand lifting, floodlights off. Only navigation lamps and instrument glow. If you've never stood beside a heavy helicopter at full power in the dark, picture your ribcage vibrating. Picture conversation becoming impossible. And picture 48 men walking toward that noise, knowing some of them may be crossing into the kind of history no one talks about for years. Could you make that walk without looking back? The first MH-47G lifts at 1:36. The second follows seconds later. They turn east, drop low, and disappear into the black. Now you're in that cockpit. The terrain on the screen looks like jagged teeth. The crew is flying nap of the earth, using darkness, speed, and terrain to break line of sight. No bravado, no sloppy heroics. Every valley matters. Every ridge matters. Western Iraq gives way to more broken ground, then the larger folds leading toward the Zagros system. The birds stay low because surviving a raid like this starts long before the first shot. It starts with not being seen. Above them, the electronic fight begins. An enemy radar operator sees brief anomalies. Nothing stable. Nothing he trusts enough to trigger a full warning. That is not luck. That is orchestration. The Iranian air picture is being stressed from multiple directions. Passive collection by stealth aircraft, emission confusion, communication delays, local operators trying to decide whether they are seeing clutter, maintenance noise, or a real penetration. 4 seconds. That's all hesitation buys. 4 seconds becomes 10. 10 becomes fatal. At 1:44, the first outer security layer is isolated. An access road west of the target shows movement. 2 trucks, likely repositioning guards after a transmission schedule update. One MQ-9 keeps them under watch. Another feed confirms a separate patrol near a fuel point. The decision comes fast. Do not trigger the whole area. Do not expand the fight yet. Let the helicopters pass. Let the bunker fill. Let the trap close tighter. This is where discipline matters more than firepower. Anyone can start shooting. Not everyone can wait. Minute 10 of the mission. Border crossed. Minute 12. The helicopters enter mountain shadow corridors. Minute 14. Electronic disruption intensifies around the target sector. Minute 16. A local Iranian command link begins to stutter. The enemy still doesn't know what's coming. The objective is a 2-part site in this scenario. An outer administrative compound with antennas, barracks, and security sheds, and an inner hardened bunker cut into rising ground behind blast walls. Roughly 37 command personnel are present tonight, including communications specialists, operations officers, and liaison elements. Security is layered. Guard towers, armed vehicle checkpoints, technical surveillance, and a nearby rapid response platoon that can mobilize in about 18 minutes if fully alerted. 18 minutes sounds like a long time. In direct action, it's nothing. Less time than your lunch break. Less time than most people spend deciding what to watch at night. At 1:52, the raid enters its final approach. The lead MH-47G flares behind a rocky shelf less than 2 kilometers from the outer perimeter. The second swings wider for the secondary insertion point. Rotors hammer the ground. Dust explodes upward. Ramps drop. Rangers are moving before the wheels fully settle. One element cuts toward the antenna field, another toward the gate sector. A third prepares to hit the bunker entrance. Night Stalker crews keep the birds hot. They do not shut down. They are not here to stay. They are here to deliver the blade and pull it back out. Then the first shots crack. A sentry near the outer wall catches movement too late. Alarm lights flicker on. One tower opens up blindly into darkness. Another goes silent almost immediately as the assault line overwhelms the perimeter. The base is awake now, but awake is not the same as organized. That distinction decides raids. Confusion floods the compound. Doors slam. Men run without knowing from where the attack came. Radios spike with overlapping orders. Searchlights jerk across dust and concrete, illuminating nothing. Panic. You're there now. Heart pounding. Boots hitting gravel. Muzzle flashes strabbing off a wall. The smell of propellant. The ringing in your ears. This is the moment when training replaces thought. The outer compound folds fast. The antenna team seizes the comms yard first, destroying transmit capability and physically isolating the bunker from backup routing. Another Ranger element smashes through the administrative block, clearing room to room, driving defenders away from control terminals and map boards. Not a battle, not a siege, an execution of timing. The men inside the bunker were supposed to manage a regional network. Instead, they are fighting to understand why their cameras just went dead. At 1:55, 3 minutes after touchdown, the bunker breach begins. This is the hardest part. Hardened sites are built to buy time. Heavy doors, angled entry, internal blast compartment. Defenders who think concrete can keep them alive until reinforcements arrive. The lead assault team stacks at the access point under a storm of noise and dust. Breaching charge. Flash. Concussion. Metal twists inward. The first entry team disappears into smoke and sparks, now from the enemy's view. Inside that tunnel, officers who believed they were untouchable hear a series of impacts they cannot place. Lights blink. Backup systems kick in. Someone shouts that the outer gate is gone. Another insists it has to be a strike, not troops. Then American voices echo down a corridor in sharp commands, and the lie collapses. The prey finally recognizes the predator, and by then, it is too late. The fight inside is close, brutal, and measured. Corners, narrow halls, maps ripped from walls by pressure waves. One Iranian team tries to establish a firing point near the operations room and is overwhelmed within seconds. Another attempts to destroy hard drives and portable equipment. Rangers hit the command chamber before that destruction is complete. Laptop, SATCOM unit, encrypted radios, storage modules, paper log. Even in the middle of gunfire, collection teams are already grabbing what matters, because the mission is not just to kill a meeting, it is to erase tomorrow's capability. At 1:58, 6 minutes after landing, the objective is functionally broken, but the night is not finished. A surviving guard reaches a remote alarm node. A regional quick reaction force starts moving from a secondary site to the southeast. A nearby radar sector, confused earlier, now commits. Emissions spike. Air defense units begin to search more aggressively. This is the dangerous pivot point in every deep raid. Success on the objective can still become disaster on the exfil. You can do everything right and still get trapped by time. Could you make the call right here, stay longer for more exploitation, or leave before the trap closes? The ground force commander makes the professional choice. Take the high-value package. Set terminal charges on the key systems. Move. At 200 hours, the exfil begins. Rangers drag captured equipment bags, detainees, and sensitive materials out of the bunker, while rear security fights off scattered resistance around the inner wall. One demolition team leaves behind timed destruction charges on the communications core and generator junction. Another marks the entrance for a final denial blast. The helicopters reposition under fire, nose lights on, crews trusting instrument and discipline. Dust is thicker now, visibility is collapsing. That's when weak units break. Like the night stalkers don't. Then the region wakes up all at once. A road convoy accelerates toward the target. Additional Iranian units farther east begin moving. Air defense operators finally realize this is not a local disturbance. Multiple channels light with fragmented reports. Helicopters, command post attack, possible border penetration, unknown aircraft support, communications failure. Too late, always too late. Their chain of response is trying to build a picture while the Americans are already leaving with the pieces that matter. That's when counterattack authorization is granted. Not a declaration of open war, not a random barrage, a calculated demonstration. The assault package has done its job, but exfil routes now face a real risk from mobilizing defenders and active emitters. So, the next layer unfolds. Carrier-based aircraft in the broader region and land-based assets already on contingency status are released against a narrow set of pre-designated targets tied directly to the raid's survival and the command network's future usefulness. This is the doctrine piece people miss. Raids are not isolated stunts when done correctly. They are integrated operations. Ground action, air cover, intelligence exploitation, electronic warfare, and follow-on denial all linked in one chain. At 2:03, as the helicopters turn west, two F-35As push deeper into sensor range and hand off targeting quality data. An EA-18G Growler begins suppressing the most threatening emitters. Farther off, strike aircraft are vectored onto radar nodes, relay trucks, and the road junctions feeding the quick reaction force. Offshore, a submarine and destroyer already inside the larger contingency architecture receive release instructions for a limited Tomahawk salvo against fixed support infrastructure associated with the same network. Bases, production support, command links, future capability denial. That is the logic. One missile, then 4, then 12. Then the horizon starts flashing. A radar site west of Hamadan goes dark. A relay compound feeding the command net is shredded. A drone support warehouse near the operational corridor is hit. A vehicle staging area burns. The quick reaction convoy that thought it could race into the fight suddenly finds bridges cratered, roads blocked, guidance lost, and overhead surveillance never blinking. They believed the raid was the event. It wasn't. It was the trigger. And still, the most dramatic part remains the helicopters. The MH-47Gs are heavy now, loaded with men, detainees, equipment, and urgency. They stay low, banking through mountain shadow while the sky behind them flickers with controlled violence. You're on the ramp, wind tearing at your kit, looking back at western Iran disappearing in intermittent orange flashes. Somewhere below, defenders are firing at ghosts. Somewhere above, American aircraft are turning the battle space into a denied zone. This is what information dominance looks like when it becomes physical. At 2:07, a surface-to-air site attempts to paint the corridor. It doesn't last. Electronic attack and immediate kinetic action collapse the threat before it can shape a clean shot. Another emission south of the route pops up and vanishes under the same pressure. This is not raw technological magic. It is system integration, space-based awareness, airborne listening, stealth mapping, human decision-making, trained crews, disciplined infantry, layered options, each part covering the weakness of the next. Modern combat power is not one machine. It is the network. The quick reaction force never gets close enough to matter. Minute 21, first exfil aircraft clear the hottest zone. Minute 25, bunker demolition charges detonate, sealing the main command entrance and destroying core communications equipment left behind. Minute 29, follow-on strikes hit the last 2 designated relay sites. Minute 34, the convoy trying to reinforce from the southeast turns around under fire and confusion. Minute 42, the operation is over. 42 minutes. That's the number. On 42 minutes from assault launch to battle space denial, complete. In less time than a television episode, a hardened command post is penetrated, its staff shattered, its data seized, its communications wrecked, its support network mauled, and its reinforcement chain broken. That is why small windows in modern warfare are so dangerous. If you lose the information fight for even a few minutes, the physical fight can be decided before your headquarters finishes its first briefing. So what is the final tally in this fictional scenario? 2 MH-47Gs inserted 48 Rangers and their support package. Objective breached in 6 minutes. Primary command node destroyed. Multiple senior officers killed or captured. Sensitive materials seized. 4 follow-on infrastructure targets rendered inoperable. 2 additional relay sites struck. 1 rapid response convoy neutralized as an effective force without reaching the objective. On the American side, the raid force takes casualties, but the strategic outcome is overwhelming. The planned regional attack window collapses before execution, and the larger meaning is even more important than the body count. This fictional operation would stun Tehran not because of spectacle, but because of what it proves. It proves that hardened geography is not immunity. It proves that a border is not a shield when your emissions, traffic patterns, and command habits betray you. It proves that deep raids are no longer just about muscle. They are about fusion, sensors talking to shooters, shooters protecting movers, movers carrying exploiters, exploiters creating tomorrow's target list before tonight's dust settles. Think about the psychological effect. Iranian commanders across the region would wake up to a brutal message. If a command post in western Iran can be found, fixed, isolated, hit, exploited, and functionally erased in 42 minutes, then every concentrated node becomes a liability. Every burst transmission becomes a breadcrumb. Every delay in dispersal becomes a possible death sentence. That changes behavior. And in military competition, changed behavior is often more valuable than wreckage. But there's another lesson, and it cuts both ways. Operations like this depend on almost impossible precision. One wrong weather call, one damaged rotor, one early alarm, one pilot forced a few degrees off route, one guard who sees too much too soon. The margin is razor thin. That's why the men who do these missions train obsessively. Why the technology matters, the aircraft matter, the intelligence architecture matters. But in the final 100 meters, it still comes down to humans moving through darkness under pressure. Imagine the last moments back at Al-Assad, rotors winding down, rangers stepping off with dust-caked faces and black bags full of captured data, medics pulling wounded into light, crews climbing out of cockpits after flying one of the most dangerous profiles on Earth. No cheering, no parade, just the cold, professional aftermath of a mission completed before most of the region even understands it happened. That is modern special operations at the highest end. Fast, integrated, violent, selective, and that is the real takeaway from this fictional scenario. The future of warfare does not belong to the side that shouts the loudest or fires first. It belongs to the side that sees first, decides first, moves first, and collapses the enemy's options before he realizes he has a left. Which decision was most critical? Debate below. Hit subscribe for in-depth military breakdowns.